On average, we touch our phones 2,600 times a day. For many, that translates to 7 hours of daily screen time, much of it spent in a mindless, repetitive scroll. Behind that simple flick of the thumb sits a vast physical infrastructure. Keeping these platforms online requires massive data centers, thousands of miles of cables, and billions of dollars in annual maintenance and power costs. If maintaining this infrastructure costs tech giants billions of dollars every single year, why do these apps cost nothing to download? Clicking "I agree" on a massive, unread terms of service document is actually a binding economic trade agreement. Your personal data and your undivided attention are the primary currencies in this transaction, traded to tech giants in exchange for free entertainment. These platforms capture your focus by tapping into your brain's biological reward systems. Every notification triggers a chemical anticipation of a reward, releasing dopamine, a neurotransmitter that signals your brain to repeat a specific behavior. As the brain builds a tolerance to these digital signals, it requires a higher volume of likes, comments, or videos to reach the same baseline level of satisfaction. Psychologists describe this cycle as the hedonic treadmill. Two risk factors make this loop difficult to break: extreme ease of access and instantaneous, speedy rewards. With a single tap, a new hit of entertainment arrives every few seconds. To maximize this effect, platforms employ attention engineers who utilize casino-style tactics to exploit these exact biological vulnerabilities. Designers introduced the infinite scroll to remove natural stopping points and ensure the feed never ends. They even chose the color red for notification badges, specifically to manufacture a false sense of urgency. This neurochemical trap is a deliberate design choice by tech billionaires, engineered to bypass human willpower and keep the population scrolling. Capturing your attention is the first step toward extracting highly lucrative behavioral data. Tracking goes far beyond age and location. It involves measuring micro-actions, such as the exact milliseconds you pause on a specific image, to construct an incredibly precise psychological profile. These psychological profiles are instantly packaged and sold to data brokers and advertisers through automated bidding networks. Human insecurities and hidden desires are converted into predictive data models, which corporations then purchase to manipulate consumer choices. To keep this data engine running, the platform's algorithm relentlessly prioritizes user retention over all other metrics. This profit motive leads algorithms to prioritize outrage, shock value, and emotional validation, which engage human beings far more effectively than calm, nuanced facts. This creates echo chambers, isolating users and force-feeding them increasingly extreme content that aligns with their existing biases. Social media algorithms remain indifferent to the truth. Their only objective is to maximize profit by keeping the population angry and engaged. On a personal level, constant digital comparison leads to severe erosion of mental health, driving sharp increases in anxiety and depression. At a global scale, targeted digital propaganda is actively used to alter political landscapes and manipulate real-world elections. In the UK, digitally manipulated narratives were weaponized to influence the Brexit vote, resulting in a massive, irreversible national decision. These online echo chambers repeatedly boil over into physical violence and domestic unrest, as seen during the storming of the U.S. Capitol. In 2022, when online narratives of government failure met a collapsing economy in Sri Lanka, social media mobilized the massive crowds that ultimately toppled the leadership. In Bangladesh and Nepal, users leveraged these platforms to spotlight corruption and the lavish lifestyles of political elites, known as Nepo kids, transforming digital anger into street-level revolutions. Even when governments attempt to regulate this digital influence, they often face massive, organized backlash from a population that views the internet as their primary voice. Why didn't the government step in to regulate this industrial-scale data harvesting? The answer lies in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks and a concept known as surveillance exceptionalism. State intelligence agencies suddenly needed continental-scale data networks for anti-terrorism efforts. Because of this, they quietly permitted tech companies to grow their monitoring systems completely unchecked, rapidly multiplying across the globe. Corporate financial panic collided directly with national security paranoia. This historical overlap permanently removed regulatory oversight, clearing the runway for total behavioral extraction. Soon, extraction evolved beyond our screens. the industry made a leap from web crawling, monitoring our browser habits, to life crawling, tracking physical reality through the Internet of Things. This meant invading the domestic sphere. Devices like digital home assistants rely on continuous ambient monitoring, listening and collecting data in our most private spaces. Companies expanded their reach using a strategy of trespass. They aggressively mapped physical spaces without asking permission, bypassing public consent entirely. Augmented reality games extended this trespass even further. They pulled the surveillance apparatus onto private properties, orchestrating the physical movement of thousands across city blocks. You might think you can just opt out, but the system enforces compliance through what Zuboff calls the dictatorship of no alternative. Users who try to disconnect face severe, immediate punishments. If you refuse the surveillance terms on a smart thermostat, for example, the company can deeply compromise the device's functionality. The real-world physical threat can range from a hacked home network to literal frozen pipes. Surveillance capitalism operates by holding modern life hostage. Participating in 21st century society now requires the mandatory surrender of both our physical and digital sanctuaries. As the data piles up, the narrative shifts towards behavioral actuation. Tech companies are now using these predictions to actively manipulate our next move. This introduces the philosophical core of the system, instrumentarian power. It controls populations not through physical violence or police force, but through ubiquitous digital architecture. The roots of this go back to the behavioralist psychology of B.F. Skinner. Skinner dismissed the idea of an inner self or personal autonomy, viewing humans merely as organisms reacting to external stimuli in a conditioning chamber. Today, conditioning is hidden behind a social division of learning. Platforms map our vulnerabilities, while algorithms remain hidden in an impenetrable black box. This box actively runs unconsented experiments on billions. Deploying digital nudges and echo chambers, these systems engineer our consumer choices. Surveillance capitalism profits directly by stripping away human free will. To survive this, society must demand algorithmic transparency, independent audits, and the fundamental right to a human future free from covert manipulation. You cannot rewrite corporate algorithms, but you can take back control of your own ease of access. Turning off all non-essential push notifications stops the brain's constant anticipation of a digital reward. Deleting native social media apps entirely and logging in exclusively through a mobile web browser is the most effective way to break the habit. Forcing a manual password login adds necessary friction, successfully disrupting the subconscious impulse to open the app. Tech empires were built by monetizing your passive habits. To stop being their product, you must start acting with intention.